Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie Esther here, and we're going to continue with the Explore the Lore series, talking about some of the stuff from Awakening, the first tome of the archives. I know this is a little weird for some of you that you're asking, why am I looking at this now? This lore's been out forever. Especially coming from me, the guy who is always trying to figure out the angles of what's coming next. But I look at the lore entirely differently. I think that it's something that is enjoyable for each of us to discover on our own. So I take a completely different approach with this, and I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to talk about any of the lore until after the first tome was closed, just to allow people to take the time to discover it themselves. And, you know, I'm going to do the same thing with tome 2. I haven't gone in and looked at the cinematics to spoil things for myself. I think half the fun is working through the archive challenges and getting the little pieces of the story bit by bit. Now that we've had plenty of time for everybody to do Tome 1 and we have a DLC on the horizon, I think it's an appropriate time to talk about the lore of Tome 1 Awakening now. So we're going to go back here into Tome 1 and we're going to examine the story, The Hunger, the memories of the Alchemist. And this is one of my prevailing theories for a future killer, possibly chapter 15 DLC, as the Alchemist. So the Alchemist is the character who discovered the journal, discovered Vigo's journal in Hallowed Blight event 2018, and had those daily journal entries talking about that they found Vigo's writings and learned about experimentation with the pustula flowers and making the Hallowed Blight serum out of it and experimenting on the killers. So now in Tome 1, this continues that character's story. So we're going to go ahead and listen to the 5 memories that they have here.
He moves through the death and decay of the void. He doesn't remember his name. Everything's a blur. He feels pain in his stomach, in his arms, in his veins. He needs to find one of those flowers. The nectar, the sweet serum that gives strength. Strength for what? He remembers. The killers. Experimenting on them. Why? Why was he experimenting on them? He doesn't remember. He caused a lot of suffering, but he doesn't feel remorse. He doesn't even know if he should feel remorse. He doesn't feel anything but an ache in the pit of his stomach for power.
Here.
He has flashes of the doctor, his screams, his agony, turning the tables on him, experimenting on him like he had done with so many others. Where? Not here. Somewhere else. Another world. All of these survivors, marooned from other worlds. How does he know this? He doesn't remember. He remembers the experiments. What was he trying to understand? The nectar? The serum? The right dose? The right dose. To use without hurting himself. Too late.
Number 3.
He feels the hunger. Not for food or drink, not for talk or fun. For a flower, a single flower, for serum. He knows the entity is watching him. He knows it, feels it inside his bones. He doesn't want to be snatched for another trial, to suffer or cause suffering. And to what end? The great horrible mystery of it all. He wants to understand this place. He does. But he senses that to know, to really know, would drive him mad. Madness, that's what this place is. The embodiment of madness. He doesn't want to be pulled into another trial. He wants to return home. He must return home. That's why he was studying the serum. It gave him insight. Insight to what? He doesn't remember. Home. He doesn't even remember where home is. He only remembers the void. Hundreds, maybe thousands of discarded survivors. Not dead, not alive, something else. Alive but dead inside. Burnt, emotionless, useless to the entity. He remembers rising from the void, finding a flower. Had this flower been his salvation? Had the flower been his way out? He falls to his knees and shouts at the abyss, and the abyss answers with silence. The silence is so deafening it hurts. He buckles over, climbs to his knees. He needs serum.
And finally,
he's lost. He doesn't know where he is. He sees things like tentacles reaching out for him from the fog, and he knows they're not real. None of it is. He's losing his mind if he hasn't lost it already. His eyes play tricks on him. He sees giant, nameless creatures looming over him. Doesn't matter. They're not real. None of it is. His hunger confuses him, oppresses him. He'd do anything for that feeling again. Anything. Even return to the trials. He would. He'd rip survivors and killers apart, limb from limb, for that feeling again. He begins to mumble words. A promise. One flower, and I will do anything.
And finally, we have this cinematic here. So to me, that cinematic seems to describe this final and fifth memory, where he thinks he's losing his mind and his mind is playing tricks on him, but I think he's actually entering the void, and he's very close to being cast aside by the entity as one of the survivors that have lost hope and are of no use to the entity anymore. So we just see all those scattered bodies in the void, and I think the Alchemist is just about to be discarded on the pile, the void, when the entity makes a deal with the Alchemist to continue to supply serum in exchange for becoming a killer. We see them take that last injection and juice up and just become incredibly powerful. We know from the Holoblight 2018 that juicing up with the serum gave them enough power to restrain the Trapper. So the serum gives great strength to typical people, and the Alchemist is obviously an addict at this point, and they have lost their memory from the use of the serum. We don't actually know the identity of the Alchemist. Many people think that it's Benedict Baker, and in the wiki of the entries for 2018 Holoblight, the journal entries, they attribute all of that to Benedict Baker. The prevailing thought is that it's Benedict Baker who stumbles on Vigo's journal and learns all of this stuff. And I kind of lean that way too, that this is Benedict and the Observer is actually Vigo. But we don't know for sure. They haven't been labeled for us. But what if Vigo is the Alchemist, and Vigo is juicing so much that they lost their memory and stumbled upon their own journal and didn't even remember who they were themselves, stumbled upon their own journal as Vigo's journal and thought it was someone else's work. Kind of like a Memento, if you've ever seen that movie, that they don't even realize that they're looking at their own stuff. That's how far deep they are in this memory loss. It's an idea, but I am leaning more towards this as Benedict as the Alchemist and Vigo as the Observer, but anything's possible. So my theory on this is that the Alchemist has made this deal with the entity to enter the realm, enter the trials. They said they'll do anything as long as they can keep getting serum, and they're willing to become a killer and do whatever it takes just as long as they can continue to get serum. So the Alchemist has turned into the addict. Now, can we tie this into the Smasher theory? I think most certainly we could. That the killer could have this ability that they would be able to juice up, which is something they would want to do anyway. Juice up with serum a certain amount of times throughout a trial with a cooldown, which would allow them to break loops, break through doorways, vaults, things like that, to limit the ability for survivors to escape from them. I think it's got a lot of potential as the character who could be a smasher, somebody who juices up, gives them the ability of a super strength to break parts of the environment. That's my theory going forward with who the smasher could actually be. Could be this alchemist character. Okay, so that's what I have for you today regarding my alchemist theory and how I'm able to tie it in with the smasher theory and make it all fit together. Whether it's right or not, who knows? We got to get all of these incorrect guesses out before the real teasers come out. So next I'm going to work on something that many of you, especially Mike McCarthy, have been waiting for, the Black Widow theory. But I'm going to leave you with this for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.